The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
There goes that man's jockstrap.
Oh my God, did you see that?
America's team? Yeah, right.
Oh, baby, it's a big day in sports.
There's nothing like battling it out with your teammates all season long to go win a championship.
Green Bay's got it this year.
Huge move for them. I think it's going to be a game changer.
We have a lot to talk about this busy week in the sports world. Welcome to the In a League of Their Own podcast.
The In a League of Their Own podcast is brought to you by Golf Kicks. Screw your shoes. By Canadips. Rep Sports. By Smooth My Balls. And by Streamer Loot. Check out the In a League of Their Own merch line today. Welcome to the show. Let's see what Austin and Collin are diving into today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode number 90 of the In a League of Their Own podcast. In today's interesting sports fact, we're going to talk about one of the greatest U.S.-born hockey players of all time. His name is Mike Modano. He wore number 90, and that's why he's number 90 on today's sports fact. He entered the NHL in 1989-1990 season, which is also another reason why I picked Mike Modano as well. And he had a long career. He ended up playing for the Dallas Stars, the Minnesota North Stars, before they ended up moving to Dallas and becoming the Dallas Stars. He ended up retiring as a Detroit Red Wing. And for most of you who do not know the famous story, he has 1,499 career games played. He needed one more to hit the classic 1,500, which not a lot of people in the NHL have reached that milestone. The head coach of the Detroit Red Wings at the time, Mike Babcock, scratched him for the last 5 games of the season and did not give him the 1,500 games played. And a lot of people consider him that one of the biggest asshole moves of all time that anybody's ever pulled in the NHL to somebody was to not give him that 1,500th game. So unfortunate for him that he didn't get that, but he ended up winning a Stanley Cup in 1999 with the Dallas Stars over the New Jersey Devils. Remember watching that on TV as a little kid, and that was really cool to see that. Also, 2014, the Dallas Stars retired his number 9 jersey, which he ended up moving to number 9. And then he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2014 as well. So shout out to one of the greatest American-born players of all time. He's number 2 in points, only trailing Brett Hull. And then all-time in points, he currently sits 24th on the list of all time. So shout out to the great old Mike Modano.
Did that coach ever give a reason why he benched him those last 5 games, or he just had a beef with him apparently and didn't want to give it to him?
He's been known to being a lot of people don't like him. For those of you who are familiar with the Spit and Chicklets podcast, Mike Commodore, former Stanley Cup champion, he has an absolute grudge he fucking hates him beyond the end of the world. And it's funny because Spit and Chicklets brings him on every time there's news about Mike Babcock, and he comes in and just rips him apart. And there's a lot of people who don't like him. A lot of people do like him. He was successful for the Detroit Red Wings for a long time, but how he treats his players, I guess, is just disgusting.
Fair enough. Well, then moving into our NFL talk for the day, I guess kind of wrapping up week one. Week one closed with a Monday night thriller between the Ravens and Raiders. A game that the Ravens controlled for the first really 2.5 quarters. The Raiders would finish regulation with 3 straight drives, ending in 2 touchdowns and a game-tying field goal. For those who stayed up to watch the overtime, way things folded out, really didn't know who was going to win it because it didn't seem like either team wanted to take control. Off the bat, it looked like the Raiders won off that touchdown. Turns out his knee's short at the half-yard line, 1st and goal. It's like, all right, they punch it in. 3 plays later, doinks off of one of the Ravens defensive backs' helmets, and an interception happens. I don't know. Obviously the Raiders played really well against a Ravens defense, putting up 33 points. I feel like that's rare that the Ravens give up that many points. But what doesn't help is Lamar Jackson's 2 fumbles, to where teams have struggled to figure out how to stop him. Obviously, he's going to torture defense, slice and dice them. But it seems like for the meantime, maybe his ball security is going to be an issue for them this year.
Yeah, and then speaking of Lamar Jackson, an interesting fact that I found here, Jalen Hurts has more regular season 300-yard passing games in 5 career starts. He has 2 of them compared to Lamar Jackson has 1 in 39 career starts.
I mean, I believe it because Lamar, the yards that he would get through the air, he's getting on the ground instead. So he takes away from his quarterback numbers, but again, when you're putting the team in a tough spot, giving up the ball twice, that can't happen. I mean, I don't know. In my opinion, he lost that game for them. He was either going to win it or lose it for them because of the banged up backfield, a very young receiving core. Marquise Hollywood Brown is the oldest seasoned vet pretty much in that receiving core. And then they shut down Mark Andrews, who only had a couple catches on the night, and he had a really quiet night. So either Lamar Jackson was going to put the team on his back or he was going to throw it away, which is what happened for him.
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Raiders. I just had a feeling that they were going to win this game. Darren Waller, what a beast.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know about his story, for a guy who ended up getting drafted, overdosing in his car, ended up getting moved to the practice squad, going through a whole bunch of programs, and now getting back. Funny story, he was actually on the Ravens when the Raiders played him in like a practice game or a scrimmage, and Gruden saw him and was like, this guy's this big and can do that. Signed him to the team, and over his last 10 games, I forgot what his stats were. I saw the graphic on Monday during the game. Over his last 10 games, he's got over 100 yards in each one of those games, and I believe he's got at least 1 touchdown, if not 2. He's just incredible. He's Derek Carr's go-to guy.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the game there, the whole Ravens team was looking to stop him, and whoever that other guy was that caught those last.
Well, no, Hunter Renfrow had a really good night too.
But there was some guy who was like the 3rd or 4th receiver who caught those last 2 balls.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up quick. I know who you're talking about.
Because they were talking about it during the game, how this guy never gets the ball, and then he goes and makes 2 crazy big plays at the end of the game.
Brian Edwards. And then Hunter Renfrow, and then that Jones is who caught the game-winning touchdown. Yeah, I mean, Waller, 10 catches, 105 yards. Obviously, like you said, that's his go-to guy. He's got the tight end size, physicality, but he runs routes like a receiver. Very similar to a Travis Kelce, but bigger than Travis Kelce. So it's almost more impressive that he does what he does, being bigger. So he should be slower, but he's not. But yeah, I mean, when it came down to the end of the game, they kind of shut down Renfrow and Waller in the last, right at the end of regulation and in overtime. But then you have Edwards and Jones step up big in overtime to get them that win.
Yeah, absolutely. And then going to other news in the NFL, the 49ers, Raheem Mostert, is to have season-ending knee surgery. That news came out yesterday, which is no surprise after an ACL injury. I'm surprised that the Ravens haven't announced that the guys that have been hurt have gotten surgery already yet either. I guess we'll see what happens with that. And then the other interesting news that I have is the Buffalo Bills are now requiring all fans at the game to be vaccinated against COVID-19. So what do you think about that? Do you think that this is going to be a new thing going forward now that shit's getting crazy, especially in the state of Florida, but numbers are skyrocketing and all this other types of stuff? Do you think that this is going to be kind of a new mandate going forward at all events?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting with the drama that it's happened within the Bills organization, primarily with Cole Beasley with the whole COVID vaccinations and where he stands with it. It's interesting to see that the Bills are the first team to do this. But to answer your question, I feel like there are going to be other teams that follow suit, especially in your more populous states, California, New York, Florida. I feel like are going to be the states that follow behind as well. So the Jets and Giants might be right behind the Bills, also in New York. I mean, it's because it's based on, it's not like an NFL mandate. It's through the team that they decided to do this.
Well,
So at the
it's through
same
state.
time,
It's through the state.
well, then why?
Because if a business operating inside a state wants to do something, they have to get it approved by the state. Like the state could say, we don't give a fuck about vaccinations. You can't enforce.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying is the NFL
Wants it. They
Yeah.
can't make it happen. The state would have to cooperate.
Yeah, that's what I'm
'Cause, like,
saying
Florida
is
will be the last one because they've been open this whole time,
yeah,
and they'll be the last state to do it. And a lot of people are concerned now. Like I've been hearing reports of, there's been comedians, actors, a lot of people in other sports that have gotten positive tests after being in the state of Florida. And you look at the New Orleans Saints, they got 8 members of their organization now that have tested positive, and that is the hot spot. And it's like all these teams that have to go there. Is that fair that if this state is just causing the spread of COVID and all these other teams got to suffer from it? You know, it's going to be really interesting to see how that, you know, how this goes forward, because Buffalo Bills, the Dolphins, if they go up to Buffalo and you have season ticket holders who've been lifelong fans who aren't vaccinated, aren't allowed to go into the game. There's going to be some shit stirred with this whole thing that's happening. And it's going to be interesting to see how it does get handled, I guess, in the long run, because it's a long season.
yeah. And funny thing you mentioned with the Saints having coaches test positive, their entire coaching staff is vaccinated. So how we were kind of talking about this weeks ago that how is this mandatory mandate because for coaches it's mandatory to where you either get vaccinated or you get the boot, which the only coach there's only been like 1 or 2 that have happened. I know the one with the Vikings who ended up getting the boot because he's like, no, I'm not getting vaccinated, so they had to let him go. I mean, they're again, what's like these coaches have to participate through Zoom. They might not be able to be at the facility for the week going into next week's game as well. Who knows what their status is going to be, what they're going to be able to do and not be able to do, but they're all vaccinated. So it's like these rules that are being made up
They don't make sense.
They're not benefiting the people who are vaccinated.
Well, there's no benefit to anyone on both sides.
Yeah.
So
And
like the rules aren't making any sense.
especially with the fact that the Packers played in the exact same game. How come none of them? There's not an outbreak from them.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, we would have heard about it by now.
Well, because if you have the antibodies, like if you've already had it or been vaccinated, it can take up to 14 days before it shows a positive test.
Yeah.
So all of these players could have COVID-19 right now on the Packers, or coaches, vice versa, players, people at the game who are vaccinated, and you're not going to know until 15 days later if you actually have it or not. So it's just, this whole thing just doesn't make any sense. I
Yeah.
just feel like they should. One thing that would make sense, however, have all these fucking players' facilities make all these players take a daily test in the morning. You're negative, you're good to go. You're positive, okay, stay at home for the day. And continue to keep testing every single day until you're negative.
Mhm.
And that should be, I don't know, I feel like the government should institute that almost throughout the entire country, because instead of all these people choosing to not wear a mask, I feel like just knowing if you have it or not. Obviously, if you don't have it, you can go out and be like a normal person, and you're expecting everybody else that's out that is negative as well, you know, unless you're just an asshole and you're positive and you're just like, all right, fuck it, I'm just going to go out.
Yeah.
Which are going to be those people. But I mean, like, I feel like it could have been controlled way better, especially throughout sports. And I know, like, my Flyers, they made a statement yesterday that every single person in their whole organization is vaccinated. because they want it all. They all want to have a normal season instead of being stuck in their house and not being able to go. And it's just like, so if you're vaccinated, obviously they still know that you can test positive, but that doesn't do anything because you're back. And if everybody's vaccinated and one person tests positive, it's not going to matter because everybody's vaccinated on the team. You know what I mean? So there's not going to have to be people out. So the teams that have the 1-2 people that aren't or don't want to do it, however, that's where it gets affected. It's either no one does it or everyone does it. And it's like where you have the mix in between is where it gets tricky because of that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting as the season goes on. There's not any talks of the Saints having to forfeit, obviously, or anything, especially coaching staff, to where they can participate from home if they have to. I'm sure they can be put on a certain channel to give their input depending on what job that they have on that team. But
inside reports is that they're working on setting up communication to the hotels that they would be vaccinated, like quarantining in, staying, so that they could have real-time communication, that type of thing. But then that's iffy on the rules of the NFL allowing outside communication to the outside.
yeah, just because that could get intercepted by somebody else.
You can't have phones. You can't have none of that on the side. You can't have access to the internet on the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's against NFL policy. And it's like even the headsets and the coaches, that shuts off at 15 seconds in the play clock left. Like they can't. There's even if they're talking, you ain't hearing nothing because at 15 seconds, a rule of the NFL, that thing in your headset goes out. And it's all you of doing what you want to do. And like listening to Aaron Rodgers talk on Rodgers Tuesdays yesterday, he's just like, how is it? Like, do you like LaFleur? Just what do you like him telling you, that type of thing? And he's just like, honestly, I like him giving me whatever the play calls are coming in and then shutting the fuck up and just letting me go out there and see what I got to see. And he's just like, I'm sure other people like all the jabbering where the coach is like, oh, this guy's here, letting him know all these different things. But he's just like, to me, I just like it's simple, not overcomplicating things and let me just do what I got to do. And it's just like, oh, it's interesting to know that where some team guys are probably getting an earful and other coaches like Belichick's probably like, nope, do this.
Yeah. I feel like the young quarterbacks that you see struggle, like Daniel Jones, maybe even Tua. I feel like those could be situations where the coach in the ear is overcomplicating
whoever
things.
The coach, whoever the offensive coordinator is has that headset. But yeah, could be just talking too much.
Yeah.
In their head.
Yeah.
I never knew that until Rodgers came on yesterday.
I guess
I never knew that it shuts off at 15 seconds. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Where everything after that, it's up to the quarterback to literally do.
Well, that's just more or less. I feel like one, obviously the quarterback wants the jabber to stop, and two, that creates an unfair advantage if you're in the pocket and all of a sudden Adams is open, you hear it in your ear. It's like, oh, like, you know what I mean? That's what it would. I'm sure that's the big reason why they turn it off. It's not the coach.
But you wouldn't even be able to hear that though, with all the fans yelling while you're running and looking around, trying to hear that and understand you. There's no way you'd even probably comprehend that.
But even still,
I feel like, for those cases where that probably could happen. Yeah. We're like sitting in the pocket. Your line's just got you 10 seconds of protection. All right, this guy, boom. Just
yeah. Sticking with Rodgers on the McAfee show yesterday, he's talked about the interception that he threw in the red zone in Sunday's game, accrediting it to the double nut shot that he took. And when they pulled up the clip, I didn't realize in real time, like watching it during the game, that happened, but it's funny when they showed it. It's like, oh yeah, fucking one guy clothesline one way, one guy clothesline the other way, and he's just like, yeah, I guess I got to overcome that and throw a better ball. It's like, because I mean, that was. And he was like, this is a ball I throw in practice almost every day. Like it wasn't anything new. It was just bad timing.
And then talking about that second one, he gave credit to this fucking safety who made a hell of a play. And I even said that too. It's just like, he wasn't any other team, unless that guy's that fast, doesn't make that play. Like he doubled Adams over the top, and Rodgers said the second he took his eyes off him, he already was going back the other way. And by the time that he came back to throw it, he said it was already too late, that he saw the guy already going over and knew what it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, there's nothing that could happen. And then McAfee was like, oh, fuck it. Did you say that out loud? He's just like, I swear to God, I heard it on the cameras and whatever. And he's just like, I don't know if I said it out loud, but he's like, but I definitely said it a few times in my mind during that game. And then a lot of people chirping the O-line, and he said that they did a great job, which is, I mean,
I feel like the receivers weren't. If you're a
that
receiver
defense
for
fucking shut them down. And
Yeah.
there's nothing more than that. Like that team, like he said multiple times, that team straight up just kicked their ass, hit them in the mouth. And sometimes a team needs that to get going. You know, you have to handle adversity and deal with getting punched in the mouth. How are you going to respond? It's all a week by week league, you know, like he said multiple times. Once you get to Tuesday, you kind of already forgetting about it and moving on to the next week, because if you're going to sit and think about all the what ifs, you're never going to be focused on what you're currently doing, because you're always going to be thinking about somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Well, it didn't help too. Again, week one, everybody's not in mid-season conditioning form, to where
Whose fault is that?
when you're down
Is that
when
the
you're
team's
down.
fault? Is that the person's fault?
Well, it's obviously the players' fault. It's their responsibility in the offseason to make sure they stay in shape.
But teams could also be a little bit more strict on what they want, you know, their players to
Yeah,
do
but
at the same time.
they can't go to the facility. They can't have organized workouts for them to do. So that's ultimately on them from February through
Right, but
end of
instead of
May.
some of these teams making camp optional and all these stuff,
Oh yeah,
make
all
it
the
a
OTAs and
requirement.
stuff. Yeah.
Make it a requirement. Like, that's on the team, where they could easily have 2 full weeks of actual practicing before you start bringing all these people back that skip all that stuff. It's like, you don't have to have everybody going 100%,
Mm-hmm.
but like the dysfunction, the people being in the right spots, knowing the snap counts, like that type of stuff is definitely stuff that is on the team that they could easily clean up before the season started, because all those NFC North teams that ended up losing started really slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they got out of the breaks or out of the blocks super slow and looked like they were not ready, like literally mentally and just ready to go. And Rodgers even
Mhm.
said, our energy just wasn't there. Like, after the game, our energy was really low. And it's just like, yeah, you guys weren't ready and up for the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the Saints were, and they kicked your ass. And plain and simple.
Yeah. And plus, too, going back to like the conditioning of the receivers, is once you're down 2, 3, 4 scores and you're trying to get big chunk plays, usually passing the ball, that's gassing the receivers. You basically throw the run game out the window. Once Rodgers is taken off the field, they put Love in, they ran on 80-90% of the plays. So at that point, the receivers aren't as gassed. But again, when you're a receiver for Aaron Rodgers, you're expected that, oh, you have a 10-yard out route. If you run your route and the play's still going, you're expected to continue. And it just, Adams, Lazard, nobody went beyond their route, really. Just whether it was a lack of effort or they're gassed or both or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, like you said, as long as you have a short memory, they have an extra day to prepare. Again, Monday night next week. I guess sticking with that, right now, the Packers open as 11-point favorites for that Monday night matchup against the Lions. Is 11 too much?
I think so. The Lions aren't as bad as they have been in the past. And I don't know. That coach gives them a lot of energy and a lot of fire on the sidelines, like, to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this could be a 1-score. I feel like this could be a 1-score game either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the
Anytime
Lions.
you play a division rival, you never know how the game's going to go.
Yeah. The Lions coming off of a game where they almost came back against a really good 49ers team, and the
That's
Packers
a lot of
got
momentum rolling downhill.
Yeah, and the Packers get smoked by the Saints. It's not adding up. It's like they're looking at the 2020 Lions and Packers. Yeah, 11-point favorites would make sense, but after week 1, 11.
It's a long way to go before we get there. And Rodgers
Yeah.
said that yesterday. It's a process, but he said it'll get back to a time where we're out there kicking ass instead of taking the ass kicking. And literally all that's lining up on Bakhtiari coming back at everything kind of being settled there. I feel like once we really get him back, I feel like is when we're back together as a team, because he's so much more than just a blocker. He's just, what he does is talking, such a leader out there on the field. I feel like that's such a bigger loss than just a position.
For sure. Yeah, kind of looking at week one as a whole, it ended up being a really historic week for underdogs. Out of the 16 games, 12 underdogs covered the spread. 9 of them pulled off outright wins in games that they were expected to lose. So I feel like, I don't know how often that happens early on, but I feel like weeks 1, week 2, week 3, I feel like you do see a lot of underdogs just because it's who comes out and prepares more, who's conditioned, who had their starters playing more in the preseason, who's ready to go. A team that looks better on paper, favor them by 8 points, but they're either barely win or the other team ends up beating them. So I guess it doesn't surprise me. 12 out of 16 games, underdogs covering the spread seems high, but at the same time, it's not surprising.
Yeah. A lot of those underdogs. I picked a lot of those underdogs because I just feel like this is going to be a season for the underdogs, not just week 1. I feel like a lot of different teams have changed for the better, and the league is a lot more even keel, I feel like, than we've been in a long time. Like, instead of those 4 teams that just dominate and are easy runaway favorites, I don't think so this season, because a lot of people thought Tennessee Titans was one of those teams that was right there. Kyler Murray beat their ass. Like, the Cardinals beat their ass. And, there's a lot of good teams out there in the NFL right now. And this is going to be quite a fun season, I feel like, to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be more of an even playing field. And even at the bottom, teams that were expected, these are going to be the handful of worst teams. Dolphins get the win. Eagles get the win. Texans get the win. Jags are trending up. Lions almost got a win. All these teams that are like they're going to be at the bottom of the league either won or made the game close.
Bengals got a win.
Browns
almost beat the Chiefs.
Yeah,
so only team that didn't live up is the Giants stink, and they still stink. Jets too. The Jets still stink. They still got a couple years yet. Panthers on the verge of being in the bottom. Broncos are trending up after they fucking stunk last year. Like, it's a new NFL. It is a brand new NFL. And, Dak's back. There's a lot of things that can happen. The Bears situation, when's trigger getting pulled on Justin Fields? How long does that go? Like, Dalton played well. How long is his leash? Rodgers, same type of thing. If he has another stink performance, what happens then? There's a lot of question marks around the NFL. And then sticking with question marks, the NFL Players Association has cleared Josh Gordon from successfully completing his NFL monitored treatment program. For those of you who don't know what that is being piss test 5 times a week out of 7 days. And every time that they show up, you have 4 hours to take the test. If you do not complete it within the 4 hours, it is a failed test. He's done that since December of 2019. So clearly he's in a great position. He's 30 years old. He's a fucking hell of a wide receiver. Every time that he has played, he's been electrifying. That's why they call him Flash Gordon. Now that he's cleared this whole thing, and the NFL that they don't piss test for marijuana during the season, what team do you think could easily? I know Pat McAfee's calling for him to come to the Colts. Is there any other fits that you could see Josh Gordon filling in and being ready to play? Because he is vaccinated and he is in NFL shape.
Yeah. The Colts obviously missing T.Y. Hilton. Otherwise, some young receiving cores, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Jets, all very young receiving cores that could use that knows what he's doing in the locker room to obviously give his knowledge to the rest of the team. I don't see him going to like a Super Bowl contender team unless they have a person go down either. It's going to be a young team, especially because he is he is a risk that you take because he has had his multiple offenses. Obviously,
But now that
he's back
cleared
on the
all of
right.
that, he's at 0 again.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's cleared it before and then got in trouble once or twice before. So
But that's
it's
what I'm saying. All that's wiped now. Like he's cleared the whole entire program. He's back to square zero because he ended up failing the substance abuse thing 5 times, and that's the max that you can fail it. And then that's why he ended up getting kicked out of the league. And he went through this whole thing from 2019 all the way up till now, where has NFL people showing up at his house unannounced wherever he is. He's got to let them know what city he travels to. Pat McAfee talked about it, how it's literally hell. How literally when you wake up in the morning, you don't piss because you hold on to it because you never know when they're going to show up and you're going to have to piss on the spot. Like your life is basically controlled at that point by the NFL 24/7. And he was willing to go through all of that while still not being paid by the NFL. Clearly he wants redemption, and clearly him getting the vaccination and staying in shape for being out of football for almost a year and a half. He wants a redemption story. And I don't think him being only 30 years old, he's has potentially 5-6 years left where he could do some work if he is in shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see him get back on a squad. Obviously, that receiver depth is very important on a team. You need to have 4 to 6 receivers on any given Sunday that are suited up. So, yeah, the Colts would make sense. As Michael Pittman Jr. can't really do everything by himself, and T.Y. Hilton is still, 6 to 8 weeks that they said he was going to be out, so he's still got 5 to 7 weeks to go yet. So, yeah, Colts would seem like a good fit, but otherwise, like I said, somewhere a young receiving core that still is wishy-washy, doesn't have a standout receiver. I guess on the Jets, Corey Davis is kind of their go-to guy, so maybe the Jets wouldn't make sense, but the Eagles, the Dolphins, Texans maybe. Texans don't really have a standout receiver.
There's 5 teams that have been tossed around early. Patriots, Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions, and the Browns are the 5 teams that all have been out there where their local sports media has written articles saying, like, come on, let's do it. So,
well, 4 of those 5 being Super Bowl possible contending teams. The Lions too. That's another team that makes sense.
I could see him going to the Rams or going to a team with a guy who just slings the rock.
Yeah,
because that's what he is.
He was on the Patriots for a year, wasn't he?
Yep, and he was on the Seahawks for 6 weeks, but most of his time was with the Browns, where he was fucking unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he can go to a Super Bowl contending team, good for him. But I guess it depends on his price tag too. If he's like, I don't care, give me the league minimum, I just want to play, then that opens up to all 32 teams could make the call.
From him not being in the league for so long, there is only a certain amount of money that he would be able to get. And I think it is somewhere on the bottom end from being kicked out of the league due to substance abuse policies, where I think that there is a limit on how much he can get paid being reinstated type of deal. But yeah, Broncos could be a good fit.
Jerry Jeudy just got put on IR.
Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I really hope. I've always loved him as a wide receiver. I thought the whole NFL policy from the beginning is horseshit, and hopefully he can bounce back. It's like, obviously, the rules are the rules. It's like there's people in the NFL that smoke weed, that love to smoke weed, that abide by the rules and do it when you can and do what you have to do to pass your tests. He, unfortunately, I think it was a lot more mental health issues, because it always seemed that whenever something bad in his family would happen, like somebody passing away or something like that, where he would fall into that type of relapse situation. Same with the Sha'Carri Richardson deal with the Olympics. It's like, you're fully aware of the rules and what's going on. It's like, yeah, as stupid as it is, the rules are still the rules, and you have to abide by that if you want to compete under whatever it is. So hopefully he gets his redemption story.
Yeah, going back to the injury that you mentioned kind of at the start of the episode, Raheem Mostert, since with him down now, ex-49er Frank Gore says he's ready if they make the call. Is that something that you can see the 49ers doing?
I can see them bringing him back, whether he'll probably just be a third down back, short yard game back, but I could see him coming back and retiring as a San Francisco 49er.
I guess kind of one of the last things, you're moving into Thursday night's game tomorrow. A NFC East rivalry matchup, Giants Washington. Who do you like in that one?
I got Washington.
Washington?
Yep.
What's your score prediction for that one?
24 or 28 to 10.
20. Okay, 24, 28 to 10.
24 or 28. I'm not sure what that number is going to be, but
okay.
10.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a pretty low scoring game as well. Obviously, with Washington's defense, I think is going to hold the Giants a low scoring point on their end, but also they're not going to put up a ton of points. I got Washington winning 21-17. So kind of close, but again, pretty low scoring game. And that's all I got.
Cleveland Browns head coach rules out Odell Beckham Jr. against the Houston Texans for this weekend. He said that he's not going to be in the position to be shocked again after pregame workout on Sunday that Odell just said that he was going to go when he was scheduled to originally play. He decided to pull himself out of the game. And last news, Urban Meyer says that there's no chance that he's leaving the Jacksonville Jaguars for the USC Trojans job. And a lot of people are saying we've seen this before, and rumors do have it that he will be back in college football coaching the USC Trojans at some point. A lot of people don't know if he's going to ditch right after the season and go, but for as much as he's saying there's no chance, we've heard that before, Nick Saban, that he's never going to coach at Alabama. Goes to Alabama after the year after he says that, and now he's the GOAT of college football. You know, we've seen this multiple times where coaches have said, there's never in a million years I'd go play for those guys.
Well, I think he said no to jumping ship this year. I feel like the question that they asked him was very vague as to going.
They asked him if he's going to leave the Jacksonville for a USC,
at all, even after this year.
And he said that there's zero chance because going into the season, Urban Meyer's requirement of taking that job was he made them build all these facilities and redo all their shit, and it's just like I feel like he's not one of those coaches that's going to would ever be successful in the NFL. And college, statistically, he is the greatest college football coach of all time from record. I don't know. I just don't see him working out. I just don't see him as an NFL coach. I really don't.
Yeah.
The reason why I feel like he struggles is because there's a salary cap. And that's the reason why I feel like a lot of these college coaches that come to the NFL struggle is because you can't have everyone that you want to play in the positions that you want them to play. That's not how it works. You have a certain amount of money and you got what you got.
Yeah. Well, I guess playing devil's advocate to that, Cliff Kingsbury gets Kyler Murray, gets D-Hop, gets J.J. Watt. I guess he's the one. He's only really the one head coach I can think of that came from college in the NFL that's had a lot of success. But again, Chuck
Pagano did it too back in the day. He came from college and
the
NFL.
It's a short list, but yeah. I guess it can be done, but it takes a specific breed to be able to do it.
Takes an organization to do it because you're the head coach. You're not doing that. You need the okay to get some of these guys. And when the head coach and the general manager owner are on the same page of wanting to get guys and wanting to win, it's a beautiful story like the Arizona Cardinals have. Struggling and now they're dominating. And yeah, it's very interesting.
I guess what last thing that I had for the NFL here, going back to the Monday night game, brothers Eli Manning and Peyton Manning gave a comedic and very analytic take on the game, poking fun at each other, kind of dissecting the game. from their own houses, kind of giving their own commentary on the game. I watched like the regular ESPN broadcast. I just kind of watched like the highlights of Eli and Peyton's stuff. It was like, I don't know, 5-10 minute video that I watched. It was funny to watch, and
I
there was
loved it.
yeah. They only have like what, a handful of times throughout the season that they do
Every
it.
Monday night game.
I thought they only had like a couple.
Manning Mondays.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. ESPN signed him to a deal to do it on ESPN too.
it is his own show too.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's one thing. Peyton's Places. I see commercials for it all the time. I've never watched it yet though.
I believe they're trying to build their own network television, like, because how they hosted the college trivia bowl. They're doing a lot of things in the media, and they're great at it. It's in their commentary on the game too. It's kind of like the Tony Romo experience, how it was of him coming. You get to hear all the details, and actually somebody who knows so much about the game and dissect it so fast, give their opinion about things, which is real because they did it, and some of these analysts who have never played in the NFL or did so long ago and don't really I feel like quarterbacks just have to know everything about every position. And it was cool to hear those two, especially being brothers, on the network together. It was awesome.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, Eli too. The Giants hired him as what was it? Fan something.
Fan relations, something
Yeah.
else.
So he's a part of like the marketing and like
But
trying to
you
get
just
more
to go
talk about talk to the people about the Giants.
Mhm.
Yeah, looking at it, they actually they only have 9 Monday Night Football games, so they don't do all, but they have 30 over the next 3 seasons was their contract. Because it's like they have like back-to-back weeks, but then there's times where there's 2 or 3 weeks where they don't have to do a Monday night game. I don't know if they have other obligations.
Probably.
Because yeah, I knew it wasn't every Monday night game, but I mean, still nine out of
17 is the majority. It's over half.
Because do they do Monday Night Football all throughout the whole season?
I didn't think so.
Just like Thursday Night Football, that isn't all year either. I think that stops
like here. I'm looking right now. So week 2 has a Monday. Week 3 is a Monday. Monday.
Oh, so they do 10 games total. The Manning brothers. They have 9. It says they have 9 more, so they do 10.
Which I think might be all of them.
NFL Monday Night Football schedule. Oh, there is one every week.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, 1 through 7. There's not 1 week 18. That's right. Because they have.
Well, there's only 17 weeks.
There's 18 weeks. Because everybody gets a bye week.
Oh, shit, that's right.
But week 18, I'm pretty sure there's like 14 noon games and 3 and like 2, 3, because they try to get everybody done at the exact same time, just for the fairness of preparing for the playoffs. Because obviously, if you have a playoff team play noon on Sunday, and the playoff team play a Monday night game, that's one full less day that they get to rest and prepare. So I know week 18 they usually have everybody play at the exact, like everybody plays a noon game basically. But yeah, that's all I had for the NFL.
Couple more things just coming out. New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley is now listed as questionable for Thursday night against Washington football team. The Las Vegas Raiders defensive tackle Gerald McCoy out for the rest of the season with knee injury. And the New York Jets are getting back Jamison Crowder and Keelan Cole for this weekend's game.
Oh yeah, Crowder. Forgot about him. Keelan Cole, he was on the Jags, right?
No idea.
I think he was. I think
Did
it's
you
his first
see
year
the
with the
troll?
Jets.
Did you happen to see the trolling video that Tom Brady?
Oh, the 328 in the background. Yeah.
And then Matt Ryan commented on it and said that like none of that has no bearing on the implications on the game like anymore. Like that game was in the past.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. That's fucking how many years ago? If there's still, I mean, obviously fans are still pissed off and sad about it, but as a player, if you're still hanging on that, like you're never going to be able to play like a good game against the Patriots the rest of your
Especially
life.
the Super Bowl at home, chance to win it in your home stadium, up 25
Yeah.
at half.
Not the Patriots, the Bucks. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
moving on then. We did not do an Erno on Monday, so moving forward, we're going to, for those who watched our Monday episode, they're going to probably be pretty lengthy, 45 minutes to hour and a half, anywhere in there, depending on. I mean, it's going to take us a while just to go through every NFL game along with whatever else the rest of the sports world has. So moving forward, we'll be doing our Erno segment on Wednesdays. Whenever you're good to go.
I'm just deciding which one I want to do. Because we ended up actually talking about two things that I had on here. I guess, do you think, I guess, because this is going to be like a deeper than just a simple yes or no question, but do you think that how do I want to word this? Do you think the NFL like ever changes, like do you think the NFL ever changes the record books to like a new set of record books for now that there's potentially going to be more games? And I've heard also rumblings. When do you think the NFL will reach an 18 game season?
I know there's talks not next year, but it'd be the 2023-2024 season. Sounds like the earliest that they'd add the 18th game. I don't think that they'd ever put a new record book just because the NFL has gone from 8 to 14 to 16 games, and the record books have only ever changed from when they took the jump from 8 up, I want to say, is kind of what like and then like the pre NFL, post NFL merger, there's always that discretion between record books. But I don't know, since the 14 game seasons, I feel like nothing's really changed as far as, oh, we need a new record book or things are going to change. And that's now three less games from what it is this season. So I feel like maybe the next jump would be once it gets to 18 games, just because the difference from 14 to 18, that's almost a quarter as many more games. So I don't know. I feel like it's tough to close a book on old records to say, oh, we can't touch those because there's a new game or there's an extra game, because if that record never gets broken, then that takes away from it because it's on a record book that isn't talked about anymore. If it's the pre 17 game record book, a record that holds for the test of time, that record gets forgotten about because it's on a different record book that nobody talks about anymore. So I feel like to keep the respect for the records that still hold today, whether from the 8 game, the 14 game, 16 game, and now 17 game season, I don't see it changing anytime soon, but maybe after the 18 game, then maybe they'd consider changing it. But for the time being, I think it stays the same.
So it looks like they adjust the numbers to equivalent to what that game season would be. Because like they just did it with Adrian Peterson, 17 game pace, which he he would have had 2,228 yards in a season average, 17 games. OJ Simpson only got to play 14 games back in the day, but through 17 game pace, he would have averaged 2,432 yards a game or a season. So a lot of people are saying that they do need to average these out or separate the books because it's a complete different time where some of these records were fucking impressive to do in the short amount of games that they had, where now all these people have all these extra games to do what these guys did. And I guess they're considering adjusting all of these records, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to paint the picture for people to say this is what could have happened in a 16 or now 17 game season, but at the same time, that extra game or 2 games, whatever they would have had back then, they could have had a shit game. They could have got hurt. That number could have not got hit. So it's all computer generated. This is what they could have did, but at the same time, they couldn't have. They could have had one more yard and got hurt and never touched it. Or they could have way surpassed it too. They could have had, instead of, oh, this guy was projected to have a 180 yard game on the ground that would have put him at this many yards. He has a 300 yard game on the ground. So like, again, it's all projection. It could be off. Obviously, like you said, it's good to give people perspective as to how good these records are, but I don't know. At the same time, it's all a chance.
Because like this doesn't make any sense. So it's the Bears and the Jets finished the 16 game era without a 4,000 yard passer in their franchises. But the Jets had a 4,000 yard passer in the 14 game era, but in 1967, but they're not counting it in the 16 game era. It's like these records aren't making, like, it's like they're picking and choosing what they want to change and what they don't want to. Because, like, yeah, it's the Bears and the Jets are the only two franchises in NFL history without a 4,000 yard passer.
Yeah. Well, it all depends.
Game era, and now they're saying with the 17 games era now allows them to get a 4,000 yard passer.
Well, it all depends.
Which if it stayed at 16, could these two franchises never ever in history have 4,000 yard passer if it didn't go to more games?
Yeah.
Like that question will now be a forever thing.
Well, it all depends what record book you look at. You could look at somebody I consider the record book from the start of the NFL day one to now. That's my record book. And then you have pre-NFL AFL merger, post AFL.
Well, the NFL has an official record book.
Well, yeah, then that's technically that should be the one to go off of.
And that's what they're talking about adjusting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the 14 game like the Jets never had a 14 game season or 4,000 yard passer in the 14 game era or the 16 game era, but in the 14.
Yep. So the Bears are the only NFL team to never have a 4,000 yard passer.
So yeah, then by the NFL record books, then that's what I'd go off of, because you could talk to any analyst or reporter, whatever, they go off of, oh, this never happened during this era. Well, that's just that one person's take. I feel like to give a correct.
Well, if it didn't happen during that era, it didn't happen during that era. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but it's how the NFL record book is reporting it.
Yeah, during the 16 game era, they never had a 4,000 yard passer because when they did it, it was a 14 game season.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, it all depends who you talk to, how specific they want to be. It's, oh, this happened during this era, so that it cancels out because they had more or less games. Like, if you want to get that analytical about it, like, that's fine. But at the same time, the people who are like, this record is held since 1910, when, like, there's people who think that way too, that no matter 8 games, 14 games, 16 games, doesn't matter. I don't know. It obviously it complicates things as you add more games and more teams, for that matter. If there's ever another NFL expansion years down the road, I don't know. Obviously, it's always up for debate because everybody has a differing opinion, but I guess in my head, if whatever I'd go off of is like whatever NFL.com or like the NFL Hall of Fame, whatever those records say, that's probably what I go off of just to keep credibility. Was that your only question, or do you have other ones?
No, that was.
All right. Sounds good then. Moving
Well, I
in.
guess So, do you think that they are going to change him or no? I guess never got an answer.
Well, like ever or like.
Yeah, I guess ever.
I think yeah. If it goes to an 18 game, 19 game, 20 game season, once you get up to those numbers, I feel like you have to because I mean you're approaching almost half as many more games as the 14 game season. Like
Yeah, it's just like right now, 14 to 17. That's almost a third of a season.
Yeah,
that you get.
And you jump up to 18, 19, 20. Like I feel like at 17 it stays the same, but like I said, once it gets to the 18, 19, 20 game season, if it does get to that point, then you'll start to see this the conversation of updating the record books, adding the asterisks, completely changing how it's laid out. I feel like that's the point where you'd see it happen. So yeah, I guess to dumb it down, yes, I see it happening eventually. Moving into the NBA then, I guess kind of with the COVID talks of the NFL, negotiations have been continuing for weeks leading up to the 2021-2022 NBA season. And early talks between the NBA and NBPA show that they will not require players to be vaccinated for the season, which obviously differs from kind of the policies of the NHL and NFL. I guess what's kind of your take on the NBA stance on not making players get vaccinated?
They're a player-friendly league, so I like it. Leaving the option open and not making it mandatory. Everybody should have a choice. It shouldn't be a requirement. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I feel like it's definitely a bigger risk just because in the NFL you have a 53 player roster. So if you have a couple guys out with COVID, you can still play the game. You can fill those spots in for that week. NBA, if you have a COVID outbreak on a team, it's disastrous because you have that many less players on your team to where it's probably going to be easier and I haven't seen anything as far as kind of how the NFL administered, or if you have X amount of positive tests, you have to forfeit the game. There's no talks.
I think it was more than 2. They said that there was a number. It's 2 or 6, something along those lines.
I know it was less than 10, which was surprising. I feel like it's kind of it'd be strict. Like I feel like anything if your entire organization to have 10, more than 10, it's like okay, that's a risk. But like less than 5, it's like I feel like 5 players are easily replaceable to be quarantined to make sure everybody's tested.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't either. Like it seems like they change it on the fly every day to kind of fuck the players over more and more. So who knows? Again, I guess we'll see when shit hits the fan and when it comes down to if and when a team does have to forfeit this year due to COVID tests. Yeah, like you said, NBA player friendly league. Good for them to have the option. Yeah, doesn't surprise me that they decided to go that route. And then the only other NBA news that I had is that Aaron Gordon decides to stay with the Denver Nuggets on a 4-year, $92 million extension. So good to see he found a spot to stay. And his time with the Orlando Magic seems like it was kind of wasted years for him, being one of the best dunkers and most flashy players in the league on a bottom of the barrel team. So it's good to see him stay in Denver on a playoff contending team.
And then the only point that I have in the NBA, Memphis Grizzlies are waiving Marc Gasol after acquiring his rights from the Los Angeles Lakers to fulfill his dream to go home and play for his local country, for his homeland. So awesome by the NBA. Like I said, they're a player-friendly league, and they never seem to disappoint. And this is another just great move and thing that they've done for a player who's played a long time in the NBA.
What is Gasol's home country?
Spain.
Spain.
Yep.
Cool. Moving over to the MLB here then. A few days after the Giants clinched their berth to the postseason, the LA Dodgers punched their ticket as well last night. The St. Louis Cardinals are stealing the show as they've now won 4 straight and moved into the second wild card spot. The Reds sit half a game back from them while riding a 3-game losing streak, and the Padres a full game back from the Cardinals on a 5-game losing streak. So Cardinals taking advantage of the 2 teams ahead of them slipping up, and now they're kind of primed to be in a good spot for that number 2 position. Some Brewers news here. Christian Yelich announced that he'll be giving away 10,000 tickets in their last home series of the year against the Cardinals. He spoke about how important that the fan base is and how the energy that they bring every game in Milwaukee has really boosted them to have the year that they've had. So obviously Yelich is looking to do his part to make sure that AmFam Park is rocking for that last series. With the Brewers as well, Milwaukee Brewers legend Ryan Braun announces his retirement yesterday. Braun finished his career with a 296 batting average, 1,963 hits, amounting to 1,154 RBIs, and 352 home runs in his career. Most of those numbers are top 5 franchise for Braun. So, yeah, hell of a career for him. Again, still one of the kind of more controversial careers he's had. Again, with his PD problems that he had years back. So that kind of hinders his chances of getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame, but nonetheless, still had a great career otherwise. Lastly, with the Brewers here, they dropped their first game 1-0 yesterday in 11 innings against the Detroit Tigers, and they're currently underway this afternoon. The game finishing up here. Looks like they're going to take another loss. They're down 4-1, top of the 9th with 1 out. So they're 2 outs away from dropping their second straight. Again, they pretty much got the division locked up. I think that if they would have won yesterday, they would have clinched. If they would have won today, they would have clinched. Now with 2 straight losses, I don't know if they're going to have to win 2 to clinch it. But, I mean, obviously they're still at like a 99.9% chance of getting in. So good to see there. And then lastly, Vladimir Guerrero passes Shohei Ohtani on the home run leaderboard and currently sits at 45. With 17 games to go for the Blue Jays, do you think he hits the 50 mark?
There's only 7 games left.
17.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The Blue Jays.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think? What do you think his final number is going to be?
I don't fucking know. 53. I don't even know who they play. Nothing. I have to look more at that to give like an accurate guess, but I'd get, I don't know, just off the top, 53.
Sounds good. That's all I had for the MLB.
And then I just have one thing. The MLB is expanding the list of who can wear number 21 to honor Roberto Clemente on September 15th. Originally, it was just all players of Puerto Rican descent could only wear number 21. This time, the MLB has extended it to honor all uniformed personnel of Puerto Rican descent. So it doesn't matter what your job is of organization. If you are a Puerto Rican descent, you can wear the number 21 on the September 15th date, where all these Puerto Rican players will be wearing number 21. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, Roberto Clemente, he was the first Latin American player elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was an amazing player, 15-time All-Star, 12-time Gold Glove, member of the 3,000 hit club, 4-time batting champion in the NL League, and he won the World Series MVP. For those of you who forgot how he passed away, he died in a plane crash, attempting to bring aid to people in Nicaragua after they were hit by a hurricane. So he also became only the second player in MLB history to have the 5-year mandatory waiting period waived so that he could be an immediate Hall of Famer. So shout out to the MLB for getting around with the times.
Sounds good. Over to the NHL then.
The St. Louis Blues re-signed forward Tyler Bozak to a 1-year, $750,000 league minimum. Jimmy Vesey, among 3 other veterans, are signed to the New Jersey Devils to tryout deals. That happens a lot in the offseason. Guys who get cut, get picked up on a PTO to come show up, basically paid to try out. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And then the Nashville Predators are the latest arena in the NHL to require proof of COVID-19 vaccination or a negative test within the last 14 days. So, yeah, that's all on the NHL.
Sounds good then. Doesn't look like anything else came out as of late to wrap up with. So thanks everybody for tuning into today's episode. Closer and closer to getting partnered every day. So make sure if you're enjoying the content, you hit that subscribe button down in the corner. Comments, likes, all that helps with the algorithm here on YouTube. To stay up to date on anything that happens outside the podcast, check out our Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Usually good at keeping things up on there, usually within a couple hours of them happening. For our audio episodes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. 5-star rating helps us move up the charts there as well. Again, we do have merch, streamerloot.co, shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, stickers, all that good stuff. Feel free to go check that out and cop some of the In a League of Their Own merch. And we will be back on Friday for some more sports news.
And for all you Ohio State fans out there, quack, quack.